See, that's why I like PVC miniatures. Not broken and no damage. Seriously, this is why I love PVC miniatures. Hey guys, welcome back to Black Magic Craft. This is a bonus video for you guys this week. I will be back on Friday for my regularly scheduled build video. And this video is sponsored by a company called Krakenships Miniatures. Krakenships? Krakenship? Ship? Is it ships? Ships, plural, more than one Kraken ship. They reached out to me to try and bring some awareness to their line of miniatures. And they're a really small, independent little company that manufactures minis. They don't have a huge catalog, and they really focus on minis that are underrepresented in tabletop RPGs. They have a few offerings that are available now in their shop, which they sent to me for us to take a look at, but they also have a Kickstarter going on now for a fairly limited amount, about a dozen minis that are really unique, and again, for things that are difficult to find for RPGs. So let's take a look at what they sent me. So I unfortunately rolled a critical failure while working on this video. I shot a bunch of footage of opening these up, priming and painting one of them, and I accidentally deleted the footage. It happens once in a while and it's a bummer. But have no fear, I still have the packaging, and I actually still have one in the packaging that I can show you. And that's important to me because this packaging actually really stood out to me as kind of great. The fact that a small indie company who only has a couple minis under their belt even has packaging, blister packaging with artwork on it itself is kind of nice and impressive to me. But there's one simple element to this packaging's design that really stands out. These little blister bubbles here have this wonderful little indent that locks the miniature in at the base. And this might seem fairly insignificant, but I promise you it is not. And it's a great indicator of the fact that this company really cares about their product and what they're doing. One problem with PVC miniatures, anyone that has purchased them in the past, bought Reaper Bones, that sort of thing, know this, when they're sitting in the package, sometimes these blisters are really big and the miniature might move around and settle in an odd position, putting pressure on one of the soft bits or weapons, causing them to really deform. PVC miniatures in general have a tendency to deform. You can actually see this one's a little bit bent here, although that could be the sculpt because it's a piece of wood. Anyway, when you have a sword or something, you don't want that thing being bent, and I've got more than one miniature where the sword was pushing down on the bottom and was super curved, and it's really hard to correct. You can do it with heat and cold, but it's a pain, and it doesn't always work. So I thought that was really nice that they thought about that and created these bubbles to keep the miniatures safe. Now this line of 4 minis that they already have available is for their race of forest guardians. They have a name that I don't know how to pronounce properly. Foradin? That's what they're calling them. And they're sort of their answer to, well, we know what this looks like. Anybody that plays D&D knows what this looks like. These guys are clearly a stand-in for the Firbolg race that you find in Volo's Guide to Monsters and some previous editions, which were kind of like a giant kin. Although they've created their own unique lore for this race and they're very much different, but aesthetically and visually they can absolutely be used for this this race, and there's not a lot of minis on the market that suit this look. So that's pretty darn cool. And like I said, that's kind of what this company does. They make a lot of stuff that is underrepresented in tabletop RPGs as in terms of race and class. The minis themselves are, like I said, made out of PVC, which is similar to Reaper Bones, but I feel like the plastic here is slightly different. Obviously not all PVC is exactly the same or created equal, and I don't know too much about the processing or manufacturing or what makes them different, but I will say that this PVC that they've used does feel stiffer than a lot of the usual Reaper Bones that we're used to, which are very soft and have kind of a velvety, sticky finish sort of. These are more like a hard plastic, more in line with, I guess, Reaper Bones black. They're still soft enough that if you drop them, the pieces are not going to snap or break, which is my favorite thing about PVC miniatures, but they're not so soft that they're droopy and kind of weird, and they actually paint up really, really well. The details on them are also very, very crisp and sharp and nice, more so than some other PVC miniatures that I've come across. These are really excellent sculpts, and yeah, the molding process that they've used, the casting process, has retained a lot of the fine detail, which is sometimes lost. These are definitely cast, or at least some of them are, in multi-parts and then assembled. This one here, you can see there's a small gap right here at the waist that needs a little bit of filling, but other than that, there's not a lot of cleanup to do on them. There's not huge mold lines. There's some mold lines that need some attention, but overall pretty clean. And because this plastic is a little bit harder, it's easier to scrape it off than some of the other PVC miniatures on the market. These minis also come with a base already on them, which is arguably a nice touch. I'm not totally sure how I feel about it. I personally like to use the same bases for all my minis, so this puts me at a disadvantage in that sense. However, I can easily cut it off and put it on my own base if I want. This way it's there for the people who don't want to do that. Essentially, this makes these miniatures ready to go out of the box without having to buy or use a separate base. And obviously that makes them really durable. They're never going to break off or fall off of their base. This mini in particular, my buddy Scott painted a few weeks ago on his channel, so you can go check that out and see what it looks like all painted up nicely. I myself am not the mini painter that Scott is, but I did decide to paint one of these up so you could see just how it looks finished up and see some of the details. And I think overall they look pretty darn good. Like, they have a very nice amount of hard detail for an affordable mini. They were a pleasure to paint. Most importantly, I primed this with aerosol primer, which on PVC minis can sometimes be an issue. They can remain tacky and be difficult to work with, but I decided to try it out on this one, and I had absolutely no issue with tackiness or adhesion, and I was able to start painting it. Obviously, with any mini, especially PVC and spray primer, you want to test for yourself, but I had good success. It was also really fun to paint this ridiculous color scheme with the blue skin and green hair. He's like a super buff Smurf. I used the included mini base, added a bit of sand and a little bit of static grass to create what I think is a pretty nice looking finished piece. They also sent me this box, and I wasn't sure what was going to be inside it, and it turns out it was 4 very small miniatures. These are a considerably smaller scale than these 28mm counterparts. I don't do any gaming in this scale, so they don't have a lot of use for me for actual miniatures, but I do think it's neat that they have them. If you play games in this scale, you probably are having a hard time finding miniatures, especially D&D style miniatures. And I think there's a lot of value to playing D&D in a smaller scale because you could make smaller terrain and use up less space. And even on these little guys, the detail's still great. The tiny little pieces are not super vulnerable. They're not gonna break easily, and it just speaks to the kind of great aspects of PVC. Personally though, you know what I'm gonna use these little guys for. These are definitely getting painted up as little statues. So just like these guys could be used for Firbolgs or Firbolgs, however you say it, their entire range and all of the minis available on their Kickstarter are for kind of more obscure classes. For example, they have 4 minis that are what they call Chelon or Chelon, which are basically shellfolk or turtle creatures, and they have 4 different classes for that. They have a monk, a cleric, a wizard, and a warrior. And these are really cool. When they reached out to me, these were the ones that got my attention because they're not the kind of thing you see every day. And I'm a huge Ninja Turtle fan from when I was a kid. They're also going to have 4 more of these Forest Guardian minis, but in different classes. They're going to have a male and female bard and a male and female monk. Last, they have 4 minis that they're calling Grimalkin. Basically, they're catfolk, catkin, tabaxi, and they have a monk, a sorcerer, a fighter, and a bard available. And in the game that I'm just starting with my new group, one of the players is playing a catfolk, and it was very difficult to find an appropriate mini, so I very much appreciate that they've included this. One thing that's neat is that on their website, they actually have a voting system where people, the public, can vote for what they build next. What classes and what races are there not enough of? And I think that's really nice that they have that connection with the community. As an added bonus, this set of 4 original figures that they already have on the retail market are available as add-ons to the Kickstarter. And this is kind of important because one limitation about their retail site is that they only ship domestically to the United States, so they're not available for those of us in the rest of the world. However, on the Kickstarter, you can add them to your order, to your pledge, and get them shipped with that. And they are shipping internationally on the Kickstarter. And most importantly, they have USA, EU, Australia, and Canada-friendly shipping options. They will have fulfillment in those countries so that you can get reasonable price shipping, and I'm assuming avoid import fees. So if you want to get these ones and you don't live in the United States, that's how you can do it. As I said, this is a small indie company. They're keeping their focus very, very small and specific, which I really like. This isn't the place to get hundreds of cheap minis in bulk. This is to get very specific ones for your need. If you're after this kind of thing, I suggest you check them out. They have a Kickstarter going right now. I will put a link to that in the video description, but I also put a link to their website so you can check out what they have available right now for order. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Hit like if you enjoyed it. Also, maybe let these guys know, what is your vote for underrepresented race or class for tabletop RPGs? What should they make next? Let them know, let me know. Cheers, I'll see you guys again on Friday for the build video. Peace.